So is thread conditioner the best thing ever to keep your threads well behaved, or a disaster waiting to happen? Well, thread conditioner is certainly a little bit of a controversial topic, but I'm not one to shy away from controversy, and I'm also not here to tell you that there's a right or wrong answer to this. So let's just talk about it. Hi there, Stitchy friends. I'm Kat from Catkin and Lily, bringing you the best tips, tricks and tutorials so you can get the most joy from your stitching. Now, if you're wondering what even the heck is thread conditioner, well, let's start with that. It's basically a solid product that you can use to coat your embroidery threads to make them easier to work with. And there are two main types. Firstly, there are branded synthetic products that are usually silicone based, such as Thread Heaven, which is what I have here, but this is sadly now discontinued, and Thread Magic. Secondly, you have products made with 100% beeswax. And if you're using these, you definitely want to look for 100% beeswax, not to mix with any other ingredients. The first thing the thread conditioner will do is to strengthen the thread, which I would argue isn't something that you particularly need for cross stitch, which is purely for decorative purposes. Now, if you're making something that you want to use rather than just put on display, then perhaps this could be useful, but I don't think I would use it for this purpose either. The main benefits to cross stitches of using thread conditioner are that it can make the thread glide through the fabric more easily, and that can give you a nicer stitching experience. And it can also reduce the risk of knots, fraying and tangling. So that all sounds great, doesn't it? Well, yes, but I would also argue that your threads don't really need you to do this to them. So you might say you're just wasting time that you could be spending stitching. The other downside is that you're coating your thread in something that could potentially affect the thread in some way, such as causing it to deteriorate over time. Now, the evidence on this isn't really strong one way or another, so it might not be something that you want to waste time worrying about, unless perhaps you're creating an heirloom piece that you know you want to stand the test of time. Now, the consensus seems to be that synthetic products would be more likely to affect your threads over time than 100% beeswax, so that might affect which one you want to use. The other thing you might notice if you're using 100% beeswax is that it can change the thread in other ways as well. It can change the appearance of it, so it can make it a little bit darker immediately as soon as you put it on, and also over time. But it can also take some of the shine away and some of the springiness, so it may affect the way your stitching looks, so that's just something you'll have to test out and see how you feel about it. And finally, thread conditioner, particularly beeswax, can be more likely to make your threads catch hold of any dirt or grime that's floating around, and that could be harder to wash out afterwards. So maybe something to think about, particularly if you're using light coloured threads that would be more likely to show any dirt. Okay, I thought it might be useful at this point to have a look at a real life example. So here are 3 little hearts, and I've stitched one with no thread conditioner, one with Thread Heaven, and one with 100% beeswax. Now, before I reveal which is which, I wanted to let you take a look and see if you think there's any visible difference between them. Okay, let's have a look at the results. The heart in the middle is the one with no thread conditioner, the one on the right is with Thread Heaven, and the one on the left is the beeswax. Now, the first thing to say is that I didn't really find stitching particularly any easier with either thread conditioner. I couldn't tell any difference with Thread Heaven, and if anything, the beeswax made the thread very slightly thicker, and I actually found that made it very slightly harder to pull through the fabric holes. I didn't see any difference in the finish stitching with Thread Heaven, but I did think the beeswax gave the stitches a slightly more matte finish. Now, I'm guessing some stitchers might actually prefer that soft focus kind of finish, but I think I like the slight shine to my threads. If you'd prefer not to use thread conditioner, then one other thing you can try that I've heard can be quite useful is to run your threads through a damp sponge. That will just smooth them out slightly. Now, I've not tried this particularly because I haven't really found the need, but I know a lot of cross stitchers have said that it's useful. I've also seen some recommendations for running your threads through tumble dryer sheets, and this is an interesting one, and certainly there's a logic behind it because they're designed to reduce static. So on your threads that would reduce the risk of knots, tangles and fraying, exactly like the thread conditioner. but I think I'd have concerns about the effect of the chemicals in the tumble dry sheets on my threads, so I've not been tempted to try this. I think you'll just have to make your own mind up on that one. I will say that the tendency to knot and tangle definitely varies by brand of thread, and some of them just feel rougher than others. Now, I always use DMC brand threads, and I've never really had a problem with any of them. But I've definitely had some unbranded or kit threads that felt rougher than others. And you might find that some colours also feel rougher than others because the dye used to colour them can actually make the threads rougher or smoother. So if you've got any threads that are feeling a bit rough, then maybe try some thread conditioner and see if that helps reduce the knotting and tangling. And if we're talking metallic threads, then thread conditioner really is very helpful. Now, if metallic threads is something that you find really difficult to use to cross stitch, then I've actually done a couple of videos recently about that, so I'll pop a link to that up in the card somewhere up there for you to go and take a look at. I guess the final verdict here is, it's up to you. Thread conditioner is certainly not essential to use, but if you find that it makes stitching easier and more fun for you, and you don't mind if it potentially changes the way that the threads look, and it's not an heirloom piece that you're worried about standing the test of time, then definitely go ahead and use it. So I'm super curious to know if you've tried thread conditioner, what your experience was with it, and if you liked using it or not. So do let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, then give it a like, and make sure to subscribe because I have lots more stitchy thoughts to share with you. Thank you so much for watching, and happy stitching!